When we participate in a competition, we often adopt a binary perspective toward the outcome. Either we win or we lose. Most people who participate in these competitions have a burning desire to win. When they succeed, they are happy and satisfied, but when they lose, they are likely to be sad and disappointed. In the same way, we often look at life this way. The historical philosopher Epictetus often reminded his students that we put ourselves in a weak position when we desire, and have an aversion to things that are not in our control. By doing this, we put our happiness in the hands of external factors, like other people or the weather. In terms of competitions, we find ourselves in precarious situations when we want to win in competitions whose outcome depends on factors that we cannot control. According to Epictetus, if we win, we will be happy; if we lose, we will be sad. However, the outcome itself is beyond our control. In sports competitions, for example, we can control our training, discipline, and effort, as well as our performance in the competition. But we cannot control our opponents, the elements of luck and unpredictability that are part of the scenario. The problem is that many people hate losing. For many, defeat is a painful experience that affects their self-esteem. However, we cannot create situations in which we always win. Epictetus argues that it is still possible to win in all circumstances as long as we adopt the right mindset and attitude. Epictetus shares the story of a musician who played confidently at home but trembled and became paralyzed when performing in front of an audience. It wasn't because of a lack of skill, but because he wanted something that wasn't under his control: applause, praise, and approval from the audience. By desiring something beyond his power, he became anxious in preparation and felt defeated when he did not get what he wanted. Epictetus criticizes the musician not only for desiring something beyond his control, but also for ignoring what he truly desired. The desire for praise from the public was something worthless and unreliable, as it was not in his hands. Desiring something beyond our reach leaves us uncertain of the outcome, regardless of our actions. Trying to control the future and explore all possibilities increases our anxiety, because we are trying to control something that has not yet happened and is therefore beyond our control. The root of this fear and anxiety is the desire for something that is not in our control. Desiring the approval of others implies the possibility of not obtaining it, just as the desire to win in competitions that depend on external factors implies the possibility of defeat. So how can we create a situation where we never lose and always get what we want? Epictetus believes this is possible. He cites the example of Socrates, the founder of Stoicism, who did not fear when he met the king of Macedonia. Epictetus teaches his students that other people have no power over what we say or do. He didn't place much importance on things that others had control over, and he didn't value the prospect of pleasing someone at all. He didn't care about making a good impression, something he had no power over. He knew that the impression he made was not under his control, but in the hands of others. Following the example of the philosopher Epictetus, he understood the absurdity of trying to influence someone through a set of questions like, "Am I interested in pleasing you? What's in it for me?" He knew the standards by which people judge each other. He was concerned with understanding what made someone good or bad and how each person became who they were. That way, Zay didn't care about the king's opinion of him. He was secure in his own identity and meaning. He only focused on things that were under his control, as he had no desire to impress the king. He had already won because he could not be defeated. Maybe the king liked him, maybe he didn't, but that was irrelevant. No external result could shake him. He protected what really mattered: his virtue, his choices, and his attitude. This made him invincible. Epictetus emphasized the risk of losing when we have no control over the outcome. He stated that we never need to lose as long as we avoid competing in situations where we cannot control the outcome. We can interpret Epictetus' words literally, but also more broadly. Competition is any activity in which we strive to win, defeat, or establish superiority over others. However, by renouncing the aversion to defeat and the desire to win, competition ceases to exist. We are left with just the action. We participate in the activity, but we do not compete internally. We may win or lose externally, but internally, which is what really matters, we decide how. We position ourselves in the face of victory and defeat. Our willingness is always to seek victory. One of Epictetus' fundamental principles is not to demand that events occur according to our desires, but to desire them to occur as they actually do. If we fully embrace defeat when it occurs in situations where victory or defeat is external, then we will always emerge victorious. It doesn't matter if we win or lose outwardly, both outcomes are a victory, because that's what we want. When we embrace defeat, it turns into victory, because we want things to happen as they do. Diversity is no longer a concern, as we accept it. If someone finds joy in pushing a boulder up a mountain, then it is not a punishment, for we do not wish to win or lose. We just want events to take their course. Accepting defeat, or more precisely, failure, is part of the so-called growth mindset, as it offers opportunities for improvement and learning. Epictetus' stories about the musician who feared performing in front of an audience and the Macedonian king who feared not impressing the philosopher reflect the common theme of fear. In both situations, fear arose from unfulfilled desires. Epictetus questioned anxious individuals about what they really wanted when faced with fear. There is always something we try to avoid when it comes to winning and losing. There is always a way to try to win and avoid losing. Take, for example, the case of the Macedonian king who was afraid to speak to Zeno. What he wanted was to make a good impression. Following Epictetus' logic, if the king had abandoned this desire, his anxiety would have diminished. Imagine that you are afraid to talk to someone you are romantically interested in. What do you aim for? You probably want this person to like you, seek their approval, and want to get closer to them. However, it is this desire that generates anxiety when talking to that person, as opposed to, for example, talking to your dog. So what's the worst thing that can happen? Rejection, in one form or another, is the idea of being rejected by that person that makes us anxious. But what if we could flip the script and make defeat, rather than victory, our goal? Could it be that by actively seeking out failure, we can turn it into something positive? Psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl practiced this paradox, called paradoxical intention. With paradoxical intent, the goal is to fail. Frankl realized that if we fear something, like stuttering in a conversation, and we try to achieve what we fear, the fear disappears. Doing this removes the tension around what we fear and replaces it with an attitude of acceptance. Instead of fearing losing, we desire to lose. If we desire what we once feared, we no longer have reason to be anxious. Ironically, if the fear of stuttering decreases, stuttering itself will be less likely to occur. So, according to this logic, the Macedonian king could alleviate his fear by desiring what he fears, to leave a terrible impression, knowing that this would generate a win-win situation. He could leave a bad impression, achieving what he wanted, or fail in his attempt, leaving a good impression, which, ironically, was what he wanted from the beginning. From a historical point of view, it is not the defeat that is the problem, but rather our attitude towards it. If we reject the idea of losing, any chance of losing will cause us suffering. However, if we don't mind the loss and even welcome it, it won't hurt us, because we get what we want. Thus, even defeat can become a victory. We should not look for happiness outside of ourselves, but within ourselves. Otherwise, we will never find it, as Epictetus reminds us. Remember that change does not happen overnight, but requires repeating an idea in your mind. It is repetition that can change our thinking. Therefore, it is essential that you watch this video as often as possible. Also, remember to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any videos, as this will help us share this knowledge. Thank you and see you in the next video.